Good afternoon, Mind Trippers, and welcome back to our segment Mind Trip, exploring the connections between mindsets and mental health.
Absolutely. Last week, guys, we brought you our brand new series, Baby It's Cold Outside, because this isn't the jolliest time of year for everyone. And last week we focused on anxiety and the different manifestations that it has in regular life, but especially when it comes to the holidays.
Absolutely. So this week we're going to carry on with our major focus being on depression today and how that ties into the holiday season. We're going to give you some mindsets that often get us spiraling out of control into depression, give you lots of statistics, and as well as I have my handy dandy DSM. We're going to read off some of the descriptions in case you may not be aware if you're suffering from depression or not, because as always, there are lots of subtle ways, and high-functioning depression is super prevalent.
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you mentioned actually high-functioning depression, because so many of us have become accustomed to maybe feeling that depression on a daily level or that anxiety on a daily level that we're just able to function and keep it pushing, and you don't even recognize that you're suffering from depression. So we are going to bring that to you guys today too. On this show, we really aim to bring you guys information that's on a different wavelength than what normally people bring to you, because we know some things are missed when we don't talk about the impact that it has on high achievers.
Absolutely. So do you want to get us kick-started with that Bible verse today?
You know it. So our Bible verse this week is Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 through 6. And that says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding." One more time, because that is so impactful. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Wow. I think that Bible verse is so powerful just because so many of us fall back and lean into our own understanding.
And when we do that, if you've been following our series at all, you know that we can start to get stuck in these really negative spin cycles in our head that will just spiral us out of control. So although we're going to bring you all of this information to kind of sit on, remember at the end of the day that you need to give it to God.
Absolutely. So guys, I came up with this beautiful name today as we were exploring names for the topic and how to address depression. And Nikki here has never heard of Blue's Clues.
I have heard of it. I've never watched it.
Okay. So for those parents that have children, I'm pretty sure that you know what Blue's Clues is, but we titled this the Holiday Blues Clues. So again, around the holiday time, we can really start to see our mental health exacerbated and start to become more difficult for many people. So some of those clues, or Blues Clues, I should have put a blue paw print on that so people can see, is just feeling super, super stressed. That's one big key.
Feeling stressed, I think overcommitting. I mean, I think we had talked about this last week too, but stress can be financial stress because it's the time of year where you're maybe buying gifts for family members. There's all these white elephant parties. Maybe,
yes.
You know, you have your lady who does your hair and you want to give her a gift for all the appreciation. And then you realize that list just gets bigger and bigger.
Right.
Or you're overcommitting because everyone wants to get together or have a holiday party or maybe a Zoom holiday party with COVID. But nonetheless, it can take up a lot of time.
Right. And again, guys, some of these things are going to resemble what people experience with holiday anxiety. But just, again, that stress is going to take a different impact. Instead of being like so worried about, oh, can I get people these gifts? It might take the opposite impact and make you feel really down and sad and feel isolated and withdrawn because you aren't able to afford all those gifts maybe, or those financial pressures are just such a burden that it makes you just withdraw and want to be by yourself.
And you know, another clue that leads us into feeling blue is we oftentimes have unrealistic expectations on what a holiday should be.
Right.
Right. So maybe you have this image in your head of this big family sitting around the table, getting along, laughing, you know, like what you see in an idealistic Christmas movie. And then again, even with COVID, maybe everyone's setting up their laptops and on Zoom, but it quickly turns into yelling or fighting. Or maybe your family's really small and you're not that connected. It can be a really, really tough time of year.
I definitely agree with that. You know, when I think about all the holidays that I've ever had, especially Christmas time and Christmas Eve, my mom always throws this big Christmas Eve party. It started out as just our family, right? And then it kind of grew and grew to friends and family of the friends or friends of the family, whatever the saying is. Now this party is just so big, and that's what Christmas reminds me of. But if I weren't able to experience that, which is very real possibility, especially because of coronavirus this year, and many of you who might be like me, you might start to feel a little bit depressed. It might start to like get you down and beat you down, just realizing you're not able to have the same holiday you've always expected.
And I think I'm from the opposite perspective of that. You know, I went to your holiday Christmas Eve party last year, and it was amazing. It was exactly like things should be. It was so awesome. And I come from a really small and somewhat spread out, disconnected family. So I never really had that. And especially in recent years, I'm the only grandchild and I'm in my 30s. So like we don't have little kids around or things like that. And I'm like, oh, you know, you don't get to experience that. And so it can be a reminder of sometimes, again, what you don't have.
Right. And then I just think about the people that truly have that DSM definition of depression. And again, the diagnostic statistics and manual, which Nikki has here, and we will go over the definition of depression. But just thinking about the people that suffer from that throughout the year, and then the holiday times come, and then they think about like not being able to get to their family. Just think about the extra added impact and weight and stress and pressure that's added on people's shoulders that live through that on a daily basis.
Absolutely. So there are so many different kinds of depressions and functioning at different levels. So we want to give you some bare bones definitions of at least the big stuff to see if any of this resonates with you or someone you love, and then we can get into some mindsets that end up causing that.
Let's do it.
All right. So major depressive disorder is common, probably not the most common of the depressive categories. But, you know, I think it's what we want to just start with that because it's what you think about when I think people think of depression.
Ooh, can I pause right before you jump into that?
Yes.
So I love talking about what does depression look like, because I always open this up with the kids that we do trauma coaching with. And I'm like, what do you think, you know, providing some psychoeducation, what do you think depression is? Oh, I'm not depressed. Depression is those people who are just sad and they sulk in the corner all day. They're always crying. They don't want to be around anyone. I mean, okay, yes, that is a smidge of what depression is, but I think it encapsulates so much more.
Absolutely.
And Nikki is getting ready to share that with you guys. Again, depression has been sold up to you through TV, through the news, whatever, as that. What the kids are saying, what the kids are seeing, even adults. So Nikki, bring us some other caveats of major depressive disorder.
Sure. So yes, you may be feeling that overwhelming sad and blue and what you just described, but there's also lots of other things you may experience, like insomnia. So everyone thinks, I think like you had said, depression may be staying in bed all day, lethargic. It can be. It can also be hyper, where you can't sleep.
Yes.
But you're still feeling kind of down on the inside. Feelings of worthlessness or lots of guilt. We see people who are smiling, who are bubbly, who have socialized, but live with excessive feelings of guilt. A lot of times that is associated as a symptom of depression. Obviously, changes in your weight gain or weight loss. For me, I wish it was weight loss when I was sad, but for me, I tend to do that emotional eating, leading to weight gain.
I was gonna say, I think that's really a big one too, that many people miss. And I feel like this is the theme that we always bring up is working out and food and weight loss. So clearly it's big to us in our lives, right? But overeating or just not eating enough, losing weight. I don't think too many people look at that as a symptom. Sometimes, you guys ever hear of people eating their feelings away? You're just sad, you're depressed, you're not feeling yourself, and you come home and you eat an entire tub of Ben & Jerry's, which I saw, those are like, what, 900 calories? That adds to my depression.
Yeah.
You see her
I was
face?
gonna be like 810, but I was like, then I don't want to acknowledge how well I know that. Yes.
And I only remember
My
that.
non-dairy brownie one is 810.
I only remember that because we went to Cape May last February, and the girls were just sitting in our cabin, and we were like, condo. We were like, wow, we all want ice cream. And yeah, I looked at how much calories were on the back. But anyway, people had to bring that to you guys. But overeating, if you find yourself overeating, eating your feelings, or maybe it's 6 p.m. and you haven't eaten anything at all, that could be a sign of depression for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Also perseverating on the ideas of death, even if you're not thinking about your own death. Now, you know, you have to take that for what it's worth. So I talk about death all the time because Taylor and I watch investigative ID in the background 24/7. So
Yep.
we are constantly talking about death and murder in a very different way. We look at it from that forensic perspective. If you find someone, Nana, I'm going to call you out on this if you're watching it. My grandmother, almost every phone call will talk about death and planning for her death and just in case it happens. And she's very upbeat, but I've noticed it's been a topic of conversation a lot. So if you find a loved one really planning or thinking about it, that could also be a sign.
Yeah, and especially guys, what's happening right now, and I hate to keep bringing it up. I know so many of us try to get away from it, but we can't. COVID, it just impacts people so differently. And I'll come out and share with you guys, I actually had COVID back in September. And the only thing that I had was a loss of taste and smell, had nothing else. But my grandfather was diagnosed with coronavirus, and he was in the hospital for weeks, almost had to be intubated. People die from coronavirus. It's just, that can bring about depression for so many people, losing loved ones, losing friends, just because it impacts people so differently.
Absolutely. And then one of the last major symptoms of major depressive disorder is the diminished ability to think or concentrate, indecisiveness. And this occurs more days than not.
Indecisiveness. Those are pretty big too. I really see in many of our coaching clients, especially the trauma coaching clients or the people we do trauma with, just loss of concentration, not able to figure out what's going on. They missed something or they just can't focus.
Yeah. So we're not going to go into as much detail breaking down how depression manifests in adults and children differently because it's very similar to anxiety. So if you're interested in that, watch our episode from last week. Maybe we can link it down below. And again, culturally, same thing. We addressed all of that last week with anxiety, very similar with depression. In fact, anxiety and depression are often comorbid, meaning they're two mental health diagnoses that often occur at the same time concurrently.
I was going to say, so many times that when we deal with clients or we get a referral or an evaluation that comes across our computer, if we see depression, we always see anxiety somewhere along that line.
So yeah, we don't want to waste your time repeating that, but it's definitely worth looking into. So, high functioning depression can be that inner feeling of like some sadness, but again, that guilt, inability to concentrate, and maybe some emotional eating. That doesn't mean you have depression if you have those symptoms, but it is very, very worth having a professional assess that with you.
So just wondering, as I look through this DSM with Nikki, last week we said that anxiety, you had to have those symptoms for a period of 6 months. Do you know what that is for depression?
Same with depression.
Same with
6
depression.
more months, more days than the week or not. So, that can be, you have these symptoms that aren't necessarily sad. You feel a little sad, a little down, but it's all those other symptoms we talk about 4 days a week for roughly 6 months. That means 3 days out of the week you're feeling great, you're feeling awesome, maybe you can concentrate. So I think when we experience things like that, people think that there's not a problem.
And again, guys, we do all have feelings that run the gamut: happiness, excited, joy, sadness, depression, anxiety, over what we have, all the feelings. But when it becomes a problem is when it impacts your life on a significant level. You can't get out of bed, depression, right? You can't get out of bed. You are isolating. Maybe you can't sleep. All the things that, Nikki just listed from the DSM. When you find those symptoms taking over your life, that's when depression is a problem.
Yeah, and remember, if you have trouble or difficulty concentrating more days a week than not, that's a problem, because even if you're getting promoted, even if your life seems to be on the up, if you're struggling to get through those emails and to focus on what you're reading, then that is interfering with your life and it is a problem. So really assess whether something is a problem or not, and maybe redefine the parameters of what constitutes a problem.
Right. Wanted to pause really quick because we have this beautiful statistics fact sheet here for you guys when it comes to depression. And, as you were talking, this one really popped out to me. Major depressive disorder affects approximately 17.3 million Americans. That's a lot. That's a lot. Or about 7.1% of the U.S. population ages 18 and older in a given year. That's a lot of people that are experiencing depression on top of the possible anxiety, right? But what really makes me sad and what really gets me down is just the stigmas around mental health in the United States. And I'll go as far as to say the world too, but especially here in the United States. I find so many people that might reach out and share that they're sad or depressed are met with oh, I've been through that too, get over it. Or you shouldn't be feeling that way. This is just this. Like, what do you think when people say that?
Yeah, I mean, it's disheartening too. And I think to get off on a little bit of a tangent, right? To also think that we have, and by we, like the Western world, has really medicinized depression, meaning like we really think that it's a chemical imbalance. It's not. That's a myth, by the way. There's no chemicals in your brain that change when you have depression at all. 0%. Don't know where that came from.
Woo! Explain, Nikki. Explain.
So your hormones that you have, your levels of serotonin and dopamine, all of that does not change when you have depression. There's no depression hormone. There's no depression gene. It's a lie. There's no chemical imbalance in your brain. What is imbalanced in your brain is the way your neurons fire, which paths they choose to take, and essentially your response to things. So that is why, first of all, that 17% is just people who are diagnosed. The majority of people who have depression are not diagnosed. So let's get that clear. And then two, that's why when oftentimes like our clients will go to the doctor and they're prescribed Abilify or, all of these different medications. Zoloft, yeah, it doesn't work. They're like, maybe I feel a little bit better, or even I don't feel worse. I'm not escalating. My suicidal thoughts maybe went away some, but I'm still depressed. Yes, because medicine can't fix the way your neurons fire. There's no medicine out there right now that does that. No SSRIs even don't adjust the way your neurons fire as far as which paths they know how to take. That only comes from psychotherapy and related therapies.
So glad you said that. I was going to take over that a little bit of that conversation there and share with you guys, like, now I'm not a doctor yet, let's revisit this in about 3 months. Then I'll be able to call myself Dr. Bryant, but I'm really with Nikki. Sometimes I feel like medicine can be a Band-Aid, but you kind of have to fix your mind yourself through psychotherapy, through those CBT techniques that we share with you guys every time we have this show. And again, CBT is that cognitive behavioral therapy where you attack those negative thoughts and those thinking errors that you have, kind of follow along the path of how it influences your feelings and your behaviors that manifest from that. So if you are having those feelings of depressions, maybe we need to dig deep and see what thoughts are inspiring that, or what life situations that you've been through. Again, difficult situations, trauma, maybe failed relationships, the loss of a loved one, whether they have passed away or they've just gone away. So many things impact those depressive thoughts that we have. And again, I'm sorry, I'm rambling because I love this topic. Just to remind you guys, we have 6,000 to 70,000 thoughts a day. 80% are negative. 80% are negative. And that just makes me think how higher that percentage is with people that suffer from depression and anxiety.
Yeah, and to throw in a little bit more statistics, so we know that 17% is what's diagnosed of people, adults living with depression. And in fact, and I have to find this so I make sure I get it correct. This is from the National Institute of Health. But 80% of those treated for depression show improvement in their symptoms within 4 to 6 weeks of beginning psychotherapy or attending a support group, or a combination of these two. Nowhere does it mention medication. So although medication, again, can help some of the symptoms of depression, it will not fix your depression. And even the National Institute of Health can acknowledge that as a way to cure it, so to speak.
Right. So many of our, I hate putting people on the spot when we say this, but again, I have to. So many of our clients do have depression, and they are taking those medications, and just always caught in this cycle of, the roller coaster. I feel okay, I feel bad. The medicine's not working. Oh, yes, it is working. It's what's the word, eclectic? I don't know. It's an eclectic approach. So if you are using medicine, you also have to do some natural remedies, like fixing your diet maybe, or focusing on your thoughts, watching what you put into your body, whether it's through your mind, through your mouth, or whatever. You just have to be careful of that, because all those outside factors that come into us impact our mental health.
Absolutely. And you may be thinking, then why is medication so often prescribed? One, we have to be very honest, as a financial gain in that. Two, our healthcare professionals simply don't have the time and often capacity to have individual therapy with their patients. Like, it's not plausible. So we do the best we can with what we're given the system that we have. And so it is really important to, again, we're not saying don't take medication. Please don't go off of it. If you're on it, talk to a medical doctor.
Absolutely.
But what we're saying is absolutely to really, if you want to just do more than fix the symptoms and fix the function and how it started, therapy and coaching and a combination of that is going to be the way to go.
I just saw a comment from Miss Mandy Staub, and she says holistic approach is really key to treating depression. 100%, exactly what we just said. I know Mandy, oh, there we go, it's popping up again. Yes, Mandy is 100% right. You have to try so many different things to get the perfect approach for yourself. Now, again, it's not a one-size-fit-all model. Maybe you need a little bit more medication than other people or a little bit more natural than other people. But either way, consult your medical doctor and they can help you out with that.
Absolutely. So there are some mindsets that tend to get us into these negative spirals. Which one would you like to talk about first?
So many different mindsets. A fixed mindset, actually.
Okay. So what does a fixed mindset mean?
Oh, now we're putting Coach Taylor on the spot.
No, because you always put me on the spot.
I know. So a fixed mindset is just a mindset where things are the way they are and you can't change it. It's almost as if like problems come and you're like, oh, well, this is just the way my life is. Nothing's going to get better. You know, the opposite of open-minded. You're just closed-minded. Any person that offers a solution, you just feel down and out and don't even want to try to apply it because why try? You could fail. You've got some of those thoughts floating around in your mind. And that really makes me feel like depression kind of fits into that bubble, that fixed mindset.
Absolutely. And, you know, oftentimes what we find in the fixed mindset too is the invisible finger point. So a lot of blame is projected onto others. Well, you know, now it's not this, I got into this situation because of the economy. I got into this situation because of this. This person did this to me. Not saying that those factors didn't affect your life course. A lot of times what we find is that when you start to point the finger, it takes control away from yourself and accountability away from yourself, which, like you said, it puts the control in the outside world, and then you feel stuck and you feel like you're not able to make change, which can be incredibly depressive.
I'm going to be super childish just for a minute, because when you're talking about finger pointing, you guys can all remember what our parents and caregivers told us when we were younger. When you point the finger, look, I'll go to the side. When you point the finger, 3 point back at you. So sometimes when you become judgmental or blaming, like you're just stating, you got to look at yourself. It reflects on yourself.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up the judgment. So that's, I don't want to say a second mindset, but like a subset mindset.
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of times when we find ourselves judging other people, we all judge. Some of us more than others. We're human. We all make judgments, right? But the more you find yourself judging, we know that judgment oftentimes comes from places of shame and really, I don't want to say deficits, but really some deficits in our mindset and our outlook on things. So when we're judging others, is oftentimes like Taylor and I are able to see exactly where there's an issue within that person. But when we find ourselves judging a lot, it gets us into one, a negative spin cycle of just negativity, because generally we're not judging people for a good thing, right? And it also probably means that you haven't fixed your own mindsets on why you're carrying around shame or guilt or comparison in yourself. And that means if it's going unfixed, you're also likely to spin into a cycle of depression.
That's literally the definition of projection. I love that. This topic of depression and the defense mechanisms, we could literally go on for hours and for days, but I think projection is definitely a big piece. Again, when you point the finger, there's 3 pointing back at you. So many times we'll judge or point at somebody else and blame them or point out some faults in them just because we're not able to address those faults in ourselves. Maybe it's something that we haven't brought light to for ourselves, and that is something that causes depression for us as well. You get trapped in that cycle. It's easier to say, oh, she's not good with her kids, than to say, oh, maybe I'm kind of failing a little bit. I need to figure out how I can get back on track with my children.
Absolutely. And, you know, one of the other biggest mindsets we see, especially when we coach our entrepreneurs and our leaders, is that will spin them into a cycle of depression is the perfectionist mindset.
Ooh, that's a big one. Now, I want to put her on the spot since she brought it up. What's the perfectionist mindset?
Okay, so that perfectionist mindset is really, right? Everything has to be perfect.
Everything?
Everything. Right? Like, this is how my family has to look. This is how I should submit this report. Oh my gosh, I got some criticism. I must be failing. Right? And so I know Taylor and I, we always strive for excellence. We want to deliver excellence in everything we do, personal life, professional life. But striving for excellence is very different than perfectionism. What are some ways perfectionism shows up in people?
That's a really good question. Just feeling, I want to say control.
Absolutely.
I was going to say feeling the need to control. When I think about perfectionism and how it impacts people, like right underneath perfectionism is anxiety for me. Just being, high strung sometimes. Again, like you said, you have to paint the perfect picture of yourself for other people to prove that you are of value. But that means that you're trying to control the circumstances to create that picture of picture of perfectionism. Tongue twister.
Yeah, and perfectionists often live in fear. They live in fear of rejection, fear of being criticized. Oftentimes you'll see this show up as, I'm not ready to get started until all my ducks are in a row. And
that's a huge one.
Yeah, and that never happens. Like your ducks are never in a row completely. Like nothing ever lines up perfect. There's never the right time to start, but now, right?
Absolutely.
Oftentimes you'll see that perfectionism show up. And when you're a high achiever and you're kind of praised growing up being a perfectionist and those straight A's and those gold medals and collecting the gold stars, when you live that way, more times than not, 80% of those individuals, they suffer with anxiety and depression.
Absolutely. I think I have been called a perfectionist before by her.
Used to be ex-perfectionist.
I'm an ex-perfectionist. Oh, I'm a recovering perfectionist because there's still little things that I'm like, oh, this has to be perfect before I do it. I'm gonna do a little bit of self-disclosure. My husband, for all of you who are watching, has been saying for the last 6 months, I want a baby, I want a baby, I want a baby, I want a baby. I'm 34, I'm not getting much younger here, like, I want a baby. And I'm over here like, okay, Nikki and I, our business is pretty brand new, almost going on 2 years, 2 years almost, 1 year, year and a half. So that's brand new kind of for us. We're both consulting for trauma stuff. I'm trying to think what else do we do? Dissertation, so much. And I keep telling myself, like, I want all my ducks to be in a row before we bring a child. And that's kind of like the idea that I was raised on too. My mom was always like, school, marriage, house, baby. But when is the right time? Like, why am I trying to craft that perfect picture? Maybe I should give him a baby.
Oh my gosh, we're gonna have a BK baby?
We're gonna have a BK baby.
This is a side discussion.
Right, but guys, perfectionism, I feel like, is something that can drive depression. When you are continuously trying to live up to something and maybe you miss the mark sometimes, you're not nice on yourself, causes that spiraling out of control.
Absolutely. And so, no, like I hate when I hear people say, well, just look at the bright side or be grateful for what you have. Yes, but that's not going to fix depression. At the same time, neither will medicine, right? Like depression can be fixed with changing your mindsets, but you really need to do it in a professional capacity where people know what mindsets mean, how mental health shows up, and how to properly change those pathways in your brain.
Absolutely. Do we have any other mindsets that can fall underneath that?
I wouldn't know, but I would say, we kind of talked about this with the judgment, we touched base on it, but like the comparison mindset.
Ooh, that's also very big, guys. And I want to kind of tie some of this back to the holidays because that's kind of the purpose of this show. When it comes to comparison, oh my gosh, just getting trapped in that cycle of, my cousin is able to give her kid the brand new PS5 and the Jordan Retro 5s that came out, I don't know, whatever. But I'm struggling to even, maybe bring them a Lego set or even bring something, like give them something under the tree this year. And just that comparison is going to keep you trapped. It's going to keep you depressed. It's going to create feelings of anxiety for you, especially in the holiday season.
And, I've noticed, I've been talking to some coworkers and some coaching clients, and I think the comparison, especially right now during COVID, is so much worse. Because everyone has more time to be on social media. And I was even, oh my
gosh, yes.
I was talking to someone this week. I'm like, what's one of your coping skills? And she's like, well, when my kids are driving me crazy, I'll scroll on social media. Now, she didn't say anything about this being a negative effect for her, so I don't want to call her out on that. But I'm thinking, that's a coping skill. Like for me, that's like you need a coping skill to get away from social media, right? And so I think even now, because we are trapped in our houses and we're not wasting so much time traveling or commuting to and from work, that we have more time to be on our phones, and it can be a huge problem when you get stuck in that comparison.
Yeah. Again, self-disclosure. I find myself not recently, but in the beginning of the year, and she had to challenge me on it, comparing.
So bad.
Comparing, like, wow, this business owner has this much so far, and they just started like after us, or somebody who has their business is on the same track as us, maybe ahead of us. But again, you know, she had to check me with that. And I do want to pull back in the Bible verse that we brought in the beginning. Do not lean in on your own understanding. When you do that, that's when the judgment comes up. That's when the comparison comes up. That's when you're hit with those blinding lights, you know, that we shared last month. You got to be careful getting stuck in that comparison mindset.
Yeah, and to call you out a little bit further on that, I had to challenge her because there was also some anxiety going on with that. And as we know, anxiety, especially if you're African American, some too, presents as depression. Presents as aggression. I said depression. So what Taylor would do is compare herself for other businesses that are more successful after a year and a half, get frustrated, and then blow up my phone telling me how I'm not doing enough and how we aren't doing enough. So we need to do this, we need this. You're not on the same page with me. And I was like, oh, who are you? Like,
I didn't do that. What? Are you being hit with a blinding light or something?
This isn't the bubbly Taylor that I know and love. This is the Taylor that's not my favorite person.
Yeah.
And that wasn't you.
Right.
I knew that wasn't you. So you had that anxiety. You started doing the comparison. It kind of spiraled you out for a few months.
It did.
It was hard for you. It was hard for me. It was tough.
But we did find our groove. We did get on track. And I would say that we are doing fairly well for being a brand new business.
And we had, because I challenged you and you had people challenge you. And I think that's the important part.
Yeah.
Don't go through this alone because you can't. Even us who are professionals, when we get stuck in a pattern, we need to look to other professionals.
Absolutely.
Right? Every coach needs a coach. Every therapist needs a therapist.
Literally took the word right out of my mouth. Yeah, that's big. You know, speaking to those of you who are watching this show who might be therapists, I just want to say to you guys, we take on so much of other people's mental health and stories, and we hear deep graphic details of what happens to them. We can get that vicarious trauma or secondary traumatic stress, and that can really impact our cognitions, how we view ourselves, how we show up for people in our lives. So again, therapists need therapists. But for those of you who aren't therapists, you could still experience some of those same things.
Absolutely.
Like being there for your friends and hearing traumatic story after traumatic story or whatever's happening. Please do not let society tell you that mental health is a stigma. It is not. Reach out to a therapist, reach out to a life coach like us. Well, we're actually both, so reach out to us. But reach out to somebody who is a match for you and get that help you need. It's not worth being down all the time.
You know, and until that happens, and before we close, there's a Bible verse that we brought up weeks ago, but it's one of my favorites, and I just love it. So if you're stuck in a cycle of anxiety and depression, and you just need a good verse to turn to or to memorize, I really do love the book of Philippians. It's one of my favorites.
It's your favorite, yes.
One of my favorites. But Philippians chapter 4, verses 11 to 13. Not that I speak in respect of want, for I have learned in whatever so state I am to be content. I know both how to be abased and I know how to abound. Everywhere and in all things I am instructed to be both full and hungry, both to abound and suffer need. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Absolutely love that quote. Sorry, we got a question down here from California. Any tips on how to deal with feeling closed in due to being quarantined because of coronavirus? Whew! Yes. I really, I feel your question because me, being the opposite of her just a little bit, am an extrovert, absolutely love being out in public, being with friends, doing things. What's really helped me kind of deal with depression and anxiety related to COVID is those Zoom sessions. I mean, I know it can become very mundane and annoying, but just finding a way to connect with loved ones is, to me, very satisfying.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to give the more like logistical answer because that's who we are. You're the social butterfly. Firstly, get dressed every day.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that one.
This is how I look every day, even if I'm not on camera at all. Because if I stay in my pajamas, I'm mopey, I want to take a nap, I'm comfortable. If it's Monday through Friday or whatever your work week is, get fully dressed. And my grandmother told me this for different reasons, but I also apply it to mental health. The state of your house reflects the state of your mind.
That's actually like a fact.
Yeah.
That's a statistic that actually I meant to bring to you guys last week.
Remember
that? We talked about that. No?
0% remember, but I believe you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if your house is cluttered and chaotic, that can be a reflection on your mindset. That can be a reflection on your mental health. Maybe you're feeling depressed and anxious and scattered, so your house looks that way too. Absolutely.
So whether by cleaning or organizing or checking any small thing off your to-do list, there's something called DBT therapy. And one of the skill sets in DBT is skill mastery, which essentially means accomplishing a small task so that you can feel you mastered something for the day.
Real quick, for those who don't know, what does DBT stand for?
Dialectical therapy.
Yes, dialectical behavior therapy. Yep. Absolutely. Go ahead. Sorry.
So we're also DBT trained. We have all the training. DBT, CBT, we're trauma therapists, coaches. We have it all.
Absolutely.
Says our $200,000 of student loan debt. Yeah, each.
Yeah, talk about anxiety.
So again, if cleaning is not your jam, I would say try it. Try to reorganize. But if there's anything you've been checking off your to-do list, I didn't catch the names. I don't know if it's a male or female asking us, but whether it's I've been meaning to give myself that pedicure, I've been meaning to fix that thing on my roof. One small task of accomplishment a day can really get you started and get you in a good mindset to move forward.
Absolutely. I love that. The 1% rule, right? That 1%. Great question. Thank you for sharing that with us. If you need a little bit of extra guidance, please reach out to us and contact us. We would love to set up a consultation with you, just kind of explore how you're getting tracked with this coronavirus and maybe some of the impacts it's having on your mental health.
Absolutely.
So as always, guys, if you loved our show, which I hope you did, please follow us for more content on our Instagram page, BKLLC19. You can also find us on Facebook at Bryant and Katsaounis Life Coaching.
And as always, you can visit our website at visiondrivencoaching.com. Also, if there's any particular topics you'd want to see us talk about in 2021 and you have positive feedback or maybe some areas of growth on how you'd like us to adjust the show, please shoot us an email and let us know. We're only as good as our viewers. So feel free to connect with us. We love clear and kind communication.
100%. So guys, thank you so much for tuning into our show today, MINDTRIP, where we explore the connections between mindsets and mental health. We will be back next week, Wednesdays at 2 p.m., bringing you week 3 of Baby It's Cold Outside. You don't want to miss that episode.
Thanks.